After an earlier than expected visit to Natchdome and the Wolf Cave, the Alpha Trail finally reaches the Pillar's surroundings, and the first thing to note is the lack of a division. Whereas in the retail game, the Pillars area was split away from its surroundings by a pair of teleporters which took Kain to a different map area containing only the Pillars clearing, here the map is still split in a sense, but it's not by teleporters. Instead, a thin line of trees triggers a loading section when entering and leaving the Pillars area. These serve much the same job as the retail teleporters, however, transporting Kain to a separate map area, focusing on just the Pillars clearing, where much of the Pillars interaction will take place.
Ah, the Lord returns empty-handed. Does the Seraphim elude you? Very well, go east of Malak's Bastion. The Oracle shall give you aid.
The initial cutscene is much the same, although with some different shots and different music.
The Circle of Nine draw their powers from the Pillars of Nosgoth. The decay of the Pillars is the result of the deterioration of their minds. To heal the sickness, you must first destroy that which causes the disease.
When Freedom's control is regained, Ariel helpfully blocks access to the Pillars platform, where the Bat form awaits. In retail, it was gained shortly after the Pillars at the first Bat beacon.
These beacons serve as landmarks during my flights in Bat form. Once I have committed their locations to memory, I can always return. In Bat form, I can travel great distances with ease. From my vantage in the heavens, no region of Nosgoth is forbidden to me.
Much of the Pillars dialogue is the same as the PC release, rather than the shorter, trimmed-down explanations seen on the PlayStation.
The Pillar of the Mind, protected by the Mentalist Nupraptor. The Pillar of Dimension, protected by the Planar Azimuth. The Pillar of Conflict, protected by the Paladin Malik. The Pillar of Nature, protected by the Druid Bane. The Pillar of Energy, protected by the Energist Dejul. The Pillar of Time, protected by the Time Streamer Mobius. The Pillar of States, protected by the Alchemist Anacroth. The Pillar of Death, protected by the Necromancer Mortanius. The pillars seemed darker now, less real.
As with the retail game, copies of the Pillars area that focus solely on the Pillars clearing are found in files for some later revisits. such as encounters with Mortanius and the Dark Entity. These are found largely in the same places in the Alpha, although at least one map tile is added after the Alpha. In all of these map areas, the Alpha version contains the trails rather than the teleporters, but is otherwise appreciably similar to their retail counterparts, with the notable exception of the tile for the final dilemma, which seems to have a series of glitched squares.
The pillars seemed darker now, less real. Pillars of Nosgoth. Even in life, few sights have moved me such as this. I marvel that such beauty should grace our dying world.
Leaving the pillars behind again triggers another loading event, which puts Kain back on the path at the base of the first bat beacon.
These beacons serve as landmarks during my flights in bat form. Once I have committed their locations to memory, I can always return.
Whereas in the retail version the path only goes one way, in the Alpha we have a choice, with a path leading northward which is not present in later builds. The northward path leads up to a cliff in the north, where a cave can be found, curiously showing a pub sign on the outside. This is the equivalent of the Brigand's base, the contents of which are much the same as retail, although there are some slight changes in the dimensions of certain passages, and a square chamber is added at the start for the retail version. The whole internal area would end up moved to Natchstone in the final game, inside a moon cave on the eastern edge of the map that took the place of the Vorador's Mansion Overlook.
These curious devices hurl bolts of whirling energy and eviscerate my human enemies by stripping ragged flesh from blood-stained bone. Of all the methods I employ, this is perhaps the cruelest, causing my victim's body to shrink on itself, crushing bones and rupturing organs till the pressure inside bursts the sack of fleshy skin, spraying its contents for all to see. Brave Victor! A medley of death and evisceration. Let fate choose my enemy's demise.
Speaking of moved areas, the northern edge of this map contained another dungeon in the retail version, with the retail map trail heading down to the light dungeon, heading off to another map area for the wolf cave, before looping back along the top edge of this map to join a northern building known in some sources as the Citadel, which contained the Energy Bolt dungeon. That building is missing from the map here, and the cave takes its place.
As daylight chases darkness, the vampire's power wanes.
From the Bat Beacon, the trail heads southwest to a familiar structure. This is the Lightspell dungeon, appearing in much the same location as it does in retail. Much of the dungeon is virtually identical to the retail version, however it does house one interesting unexpected bonus. The save altar within has a hidden teleporter inside, which sends the player to a megalith circle in the middle of nowhere. There have been some minor differences in trail markings, and the surroundings are cliffs and grass rather than water, but this appears to be the same megalith circle that will eventually take up residence on an island in the heart of the Lake of the Dead in the retail game, with a teleporter that leads to the Lost City. Sadly, with the Lost City not present in this version of the game, the invisible teleporter at the centre just leads back to the Light Dungeon.
While it is true that natural light weakens a vampire, magical light can have many uses indeed. Reputed to have been ripped from the chest of the greatest vampire to have ever existed, Janos Audron, the Heart of Darkness restores vampiric unlife. It can be used over and over again, but always consumes magical energy from the one who uses it. Life is precious, Janos discovered, as it was torn, throbbing and bleeding from his own body.
Moving on further down the trail leads us to a new map tile. In retail, the Wolf Cave and Lake of Tears occupied this position, but here we've already crossed that lake, it's the water at the bottom, and we come to a new area containing a trail heading up to the northwest and a small graveyard filled with ghosts. This enemy class, called Ghosts in the official guide, lacked feet and floated above ground, existed only in their namesake ghost state, and attacked by lunging and hugging the player. They were actually present in the retail game, but were exceedingly rare, and could only be encountered in a single underground section of Korhagen, where they were notably rarely aggressive. Their appearance in the Alpha indicates they were originally intended to be far more numerous. The main building here is actually a repositioned energy bolt dungeon, lacking its grander appearance from retail and looking more like one of the smaller cemetery crypts. It would ultimately end up in a position north of the pillars, where the Brigands' base is in the Alpha. The inside of the dungeon starts with an additional fork leading to a save room, where the retail just has a pass-through save room. Beyond this, the dungeon has a similar layout to the retail game, but the overall style is slightly different, with the Alpha favouring brown walls and wooden plank doorways compared to the distinctive green and yellow appearance of the retail, complete with diamond and skeletal decorations. While the rooms of the dungeon are similar to retail, there are changes all around, such as narrower staircases and a spike pit in the first room, the swapping around of the back rooms, the addition of spike pits in the fourth room, and a much more complicated final chamber, which necessitated the use of the energy bolt spell to escape.
The energy bolt employs magical force in its rawest form. A messy spell, but a potent one nonetheless.
Nearby the energy bolt dungeon is another unusual structure which looks like it should lead somewhere. Unfortunately, this entry, if it is an entry, leads nowhere and cannot be used. It's currently unknown which rooms would have connected here, but several of the additional rooms that exist in the alpha have similarly themed designs to the energy bolt dungeon, so it's possible one of them may have connected. Beyond this, the trail leads up some cliff jumps and back into some known areas, and the town of Stench and Crow. Join us next time as we explore the towns of Stench and Crow and Vassabund.